Thanks for babysitting the little one for a year. Her words were as casual as if we had just said goodbye yesterday. It's as if she had forgotten how awful she became the moment my husband passed away and went to heaven. Then, from the other end of the phone, I could also hear Jackson's voice. I'm coming to pick her up now. I gave them the coldest voice I could muster. Huh? I don't know any kid like that? A line I had practiced countless times over the year. I had thought there would have been an opportunity to say it much sooner. It's unbelievable that she left her child and didn't contact me for an entire year. Huh? But I left her at your front door. Ella seemed completely oblivious to the gravity of the situation. Carefully avoiding any hint of sarcasm, I started my rehearsed line again. What are you talking about? You didn't leave little Amelia with me. Don't tell me you've forgotten? Now, the long-awaited moment had arrived. It was time for her to feel regret and reflect on her actions. My name is Layla Smith, and I'm 51 years old. Last year, my husband passed away and went to heaven. We were both remarried. My son, who is mine from a previous relationship, was already living far away in the big city by the time we got married. My stepdaughter, Ella, was 17 at the time. I was worried about her being at a difficult age, but she accepted me as a new member of the family. Layla, do you want this lipstick? I got it online, but I think this color suits you better than me. Ella's casual conversation was a lifeline for me. Life with my new family was indeed happy. But 12 years have passed since then. My husband fell ill, fought bravely, but eventually lay in his coffin. At his funeral, attended by my son and my husband's relatives, my sister Maya, who is actually my twin and identical in every way, comforted me. She understood my grief better than anyone and offered encouragement. After the funeral, my son had to return quickly to his job. Ella and her husband Jackson, living close by, offered to help clean the house and sort through my husband's belongings. I decided that everything my husband left behind, from bank accounts to his shoes, should go to his biological daughter, Ella. I won't really use the car much by myself. He said the car was for me, but if you'd like, please take it. The young couple looked at each other, smiling happily. After all, she was the beloved daughter he left behind. I wanted her to be happy. I thought Ella and I could continue to cooperate and live well together. Really? Thank you, Layla. No, Mom. Her words made me smile too. But then, even as she sometimes teared up, Ella's expression turned serious. What about the house and land? It seemed she was concerned about not finding any deeds for the house or land among the things she could inherit. However, the house we lived in after remarrying was originally my family home. It was passed down to me after my parents moved out. I was surprised she didn't know until now, but I explained. That house was originally my family's. Both the land and the house are still in my parents' names. They're still healthy, so we won't be talking about inheritance for a while. See, they're right over there, aren't they? I pointed to my parents, who had attended the funeral. Ella and Jackson then turned around and started whispering to each other. It seemed they hadn't expected to inherit the house or land either. For a moment, Ella's reflection in the window twisted into a look of hatred I'd never seen before, sending shivers down my spine. Then, for a while, there was no word from Ella and Jackson. Even when I send messages, they are only marked as read and never replied to. However, 3 months later, suddenly, Ella came to visit. She was wearing very loose clothing. Seeing her face after such a long time made me happy. Moreover, Ella had some wonderful news. I'm pregnant. I jumped for joy. Thinking the baby was conceived right after my husband passed away felt like a rebirth. Congratulations! That's wonderful news. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help. I said, imagining taking care of the baby with Ella, accompanying her on shopping trips. I was more than willing to take care of the baby if Ella ever felt overwhelmed by parenting. I dreamt of being a good grandmother. Little did I know, I would regret these words. So, how many months are you in? I casually asked, only to realize my mistake. Ella casually replied. almost 7 months. She then pressed her flowy dress against her belly to show it off. It was indeed swollen. I hadn't noticed at the funeral 3 months ago, but she must have been pregnant already. It was a misunderstanding on my part to think the baby was conceived after my husband's departure. It was actually during his illness. I wished she had at least told my husband, so he could have seen his grandchild's face before passing away. Ignoring my confusion, Ella started to make herself comfortable in the living room. Even when it was dinner time, and after I had served dinner, she showed no signs of leaving. Eventually, after 8 p.m., Ella suddenly said, "I can't be bothered to go home now, I'll stay over." "Thanks." I was stunned by Ella's announcement. It was fine for her to stay, but where was she planning to sleep? Jackson and she had taken my husband's bed, and the bed Ella used in high school was gone. "I don't have any spare bedding apart from my bed, what will you do?" I asked tentatively. Ella whispered to Jackson, then, while lounging on the sofa, looked up at me standing and said, "Then that's fine. Jackson says he'll sleep on this sofa." I was speechless, wondering about myself. Because of how boldly they behaved, making me question if I was the one being unreasonable. Meanwhile, Jackson was just turning away annoyingly. Then suddenly, he got up, opened the fridge, and started rummaging through it. "Hey, ma'am, you got nothing here? No beer or anything? I want something to drink, other than tea or water." Jackson's words had Ella nodding in agreement. It seemed they expected me to go out and buy them something. I was simply astonished at their audacity. They left the next morning after breakfast. Without so much as a goodbye, they sneaked out the moment I looked away. Because of that, I even went looking for them, thinking they were somewhere around since they were nowhere to be found. The sudden visits from Ella and Jackson continued after that. They would come almost every week, staying for 2 or 3 days each time. Eventually, I bought an air mattress for myself because I couldn't keep giving up my bed every time, but Jackson, finding it amusing, took it for himself. So, I ended up sleeping on the couch whenever they visited. Honestly, it was a burden. But having told them to let me know if there was anything I could help with, I felt awkward refusing them. When Jackson took a shower and walked around dripping wet without a stitch on, I couldn't help but scream. When I finally protested that he should at least get dressed, Ella retorted, "What's the big deal? Maybe you're just not showing enough love because you're not my real mom," using the fact that he's my stepchild against me. Jackson just smirked from a distance, not saying a word, which was unsettling. A little over 3 months later, Ella's daughter, Amelia, was born. Even though we weren't blood related, I was thrilled to have my first grandchild. Ella, holding Amelia happily, showed her to me and said, "Look, Amelia, it's a stranger lady." Though she was teasing, it felt like a slap in the face to me, who thought of Amelia as my granddaughter. Then Jackson chimed in, laughing. "Hey, don't call her a strange old lady, or we won't get the house." I felt incredibly uncomfortable, handed over my gift, and quickly went home, feeling that things weren't going well with that couple. Ella, who seemed like a normal gal before we got married, suddenly felt distant to me. A month later, Ella suddenly showed up at my house. "Here." With just that one word, she handed over something that looked like a large bag at the front door. I was shocked when I looked inside. There lay Amelia, sleeping peacefully. Of course, it was Amelia. It appeared to be a baby basket. "Wait, are you leaving her with me? What about diapers? Milk? What time will you be back?" Ella and Jackson didn't answer and just drove off. They never came back, no matter how long I waited. I couldn't just walk around with an infant who couldn't yet hold her head up, so I reluctantly called Maya for help. She came over with necessities, and I was completely drained by the ordeal. I didn't mind babysitting, but leaving her all day without a word in advance was outrageous. That night, around 8 p.m., Ella and Jackson finally returned. Without any thanks or apology. They took Amelia as if it was the most natural thing and said, "See ya, we'll come again on Monday, so please take care of her for a while." I hurriedly stopped Ella, forgetting to protest. because I had plans to be out all day the next Monday.
Wait. Monday, the 16th, right? I can't, I'll be out all day. Can't you ask Jackson's family?
Ella glanced back at me and snorted. Loud music could be heard coming from the car parked in front of the house. Jackson didn't even bother to look at me. Okay. His abrupt agreement left me feeling uneasy. Out of concern, I called Maya to discuss what happened. I was calling to talk about what happened.
Surely, your stepdaughter and her husband are to blame. But you're also at fault for not saying anything. You do too much for others. Well, can't be helped. If they come, I'll give them a piece of my mind.
Maya said she would come to my house. Feeling terribly sorry, I bowed my head over the phone. Then, early Monday morning, my worst fears about Ella and her antics were confirmed. It's October now, and autumn is in full swing. The mornings have gotten quite chilly. As we were having breakfast, I thought I heard a faint sound like a cat meowing.
Hey, isn't that coming from the front door?
When we went to the entrance, the sound grew louder. Maya cautiously opened the front door, and there, left all alone, was a glimpse of a familiar baby basket. My breath caught at the sight of the basket. The next moment, Maya stepped outside and closed the door behind her, leaving me standing there dumbfounded. Then I heard the sound of a car engine starting.
We're off on a trip. Take care of her for a year. Bye.
I heard a loud voice and almost collapsed. Soon, Maya returned to the house with a scowl, walking briskly.
Looks like they were hiding in the car. But isn't the baby really cold? It doesn't seem like she was in the car just before this.
We peeked into the baby basket. Amelia's hand was very cold to the touch. And she seemed exhausted from crying, her nose dripping. We hurried to warm her up, but decided it was best to go to the hospital. Maya and I rushed there. While waiting at the after-hours window, we quietly discussed what to do next, feeling heavy-hearted. Time passed, and a year later, I received a call from Ella on my phone.
Thanks for taking care of the baby for a year.
Her tone was as casual as if we had just parted ways yesterday. Then, from the other end of the call, I could hear Jackson's voice. We're coming to pick her up now. I pulled the phone away from my mouth to take a deep breath. The day had finally arrived. I was ready to say the line I had practiced daily for a year. Huh? I don't know any kid like that. I managed to say it with a surprisingly cold voice, filled with real anger. Ella and Jackson had been completely out of touch for a whole year. My attempts to reach them through every possible means had failed.
The number you have dialed is either out of range or turned off.
I tried to contact Ella through every means possible. None of my messages were read, and the letters I sent to their home likely remained unopened. If they had seen any of them, they would know where I am now. On the other end, Jackson made a small noise, uh-huh, or an as if Ella was handing the phone to him, making rustling sounds. While I waited patiently, Ella began to speak. Huh?
But I left her at your front door.
She said it with a chuckle, as if finding the whole situation amusing, clearly not grasping the seriousness of it.
What are you talking about? You didn't leave Amelia with me, did you? Don't tell me you've forgotten.
I pressed on. I remembered a year ago, the image of Amelia left at the entrance. It was the unforgettable major incident of October 16th. Concerned about Amelia's chilled body, Maya and I rushed to the hospital. The doctor was shocked when we explained the situation. Naturally, since she was left not in someone's arms but on the cold concrete of the front porch. The doctor mentioned that the degree of her coldness suggested it wasn't just for 5 or 10 minutes. Amelia was admitted for a day as a precaution, but luckily, it was just a cold. We were told it could have been dangerous, like pneumonia or hypothermia, if she wasn't a sturdy child. The thought of finding her even later sends shivers down my spine.
Huh? What are you talking about? I left her with you a year ago. Are you out of your mind?
Ella's voice grew harsh, frustrated with my refusal to acknowledge. I sighed and responded.
You left her with Aunt Maya, not me. You know, Maya, Who came over to look after the house while I was away? Just because we're twins doesn't mean you can mix us up, especially after being family for 12 years.
There was a pause. I could tell Ella was confused. After all, she hardly ever spoke to Maya. The funeral was probably the only time they met. She might know the name but not remember the face well. Though we're twins, there are differences up close, even our hairstyles. Besides, even our hairstyles are different. I keep mine short, and Maya has long hair. But that morning, when Amelia was left, Maya had tied hers back. From afar, you wouldn't be able to tell us apart. Knowing this, we deliberately let Ella think she had entrusted Amelia to Maya. That was part of our plan. Ella took me for granted because we knew each other so well. And Jackson, too, thought he could get away with anything because, even if only by marriage, I was a parent. At least, that's how we felt. So, what if a relative they weren't close with got involved? Maya looks almost exactly like me, but she and Ella don't really know each other. Likely, Ella and Jackson couldn't act as high and mighty with her as they did with me. The plan was to have stern Maya give them a good talking to and make them reflect.
I thought maybe you didn't trust me and had left her with Maya instead. I've only ever raised boys, but Maya has raised 3 daughters. Since you went as far as teaching Amelia to call me the stranger lady, I thought you really disliked me.
I delivered my rehearsed speech in one breath. I was typing on the computer as I spoke. Emailing Maya, my #1 ally.
Wait, so where is Amelia? Isn't she at your place?
If she still thinks that's her home, that's quite naive. I solemnly said.
Yes, she's at Maya's. Because, after all, it was Maya who took her in.
At my words, Ella screamed in surprise.
Why isn't she at that house? That makes no sense. I thought it would become mine if Amelia lived there.
As I heard her mutter, a giant question mark appeared in my head. What was she talking about? That the house would become Ella's if Amelia lived there? I desperately tried to think of any law that suggested such a thing but came up empty. Perhaps it was some bizarre, unfounded theory.
No, it's fine. Layla, you're at the house, right? I'll go there first.
With that, Ella hung up. I hurriedly redialed. Each ring felt incredibly long. Seconds felt like hours. I thought she might ignore me, but Ella picked up after a few rings.
I'm not there. I've moved,
I said quickly, and Ella exclaimed, "What?" I waited for her to ask something, but there was no further reaction. I continued reluctantly.
I've been trying to get in touch to tell you that, but I couldn't reach you. I'm at my parents' condo, taking care of them.
A year ago, when I refused to take care of Amelia, it was related to me telling Ella I would be out from the morning. In fact, that day, I was called to meet my parents. My parents, who built our family home, moved to a condo in the city after my father retired, thinking a smaller place would suffice. This time, my father had hurt his back and needed assistance. Since my mother is petite and struggled to support my father's weight, they called me, now single, for help.
Why didn't you tell me earlier?
Ella reproached me after hearing the explanation. I just shrugged my shoulders and told her the truth, with a sprinkle of a lie.
I thought I'd be back in about a week. I never imagined it would turn into just a bit longer until a whole year had passed. But it can't be helped, my parents are getting older and need assistance.
Initially, I truly thought I would return in a week. The fact that it turned into a year-long stay was entirely unexpected and genuinely surprising. The bit of a lie was that even when I could return, I no longer wanted to go back to that house. Ella leaving Amelia there changed my mind. As long as I lived in that house, Ella and her family might repeat similar actions. Worried about this, Maya and I decided it was best for me to change my residence. That was the second part of our plan. Having someone too comfortable around shouldn't be nearby, maintaining a proper distance was our goal.
Wait, so that house is empty now? Yes, I can live there.
Ella suddenly realized and said as if it had just dawned on her. I wondered why it sounded oddly pleased. Caught off guard, I then heard Jackson's voice.
Thanks. We'll take good care of it.
I panicked and waved my hands in denial. Then realized my gestures couldn't be seen over the phone. Frustrated by not being able to converse face to face, I wished I could fly to Ella and Jackson right then.
No, that's not it. Aunt Maya is living there. Go pick up Amelia, she's there.
Right after I finished speaking, I heard a loud thud, as if a phone had been dropped. Whether Ella had heard the situation from Jackson or not, her angry voice was faintly audible. Then, the call ended. What followed is a story I heard from Maya later on. The main characters are Maya and Amelia, along with Ella and Jackson. Maya is a tough-as-nails type. Her husband, who appeared as a gentle soul, came as a bonus in the story. About an hour after the call ended, Ella and Jackson barged into the house where Maya and her husband lived. The suntanned couple, pulling a suitcase with stickers on it, looked too carefree. It seemed infuriating that they had left the baby behind and were doing whatever they pleased.
Hey! Why is a stranger living here?
Ella yelled. The volume was so intense it hurt the ears. To Ella, maybe Maya was a stranger. But Maya is the daughter of the house's owner, it's not strange for her to live there. I'm utterly disappointed in Ella, who can only see the world as it pertains to herself.
My parents gave me this house as a living inheritance. Layla has lived there long enough, it's time to hand it over to Maya, they said.
It was about 6 months ago. Maya told me with a full smile. By then, Maya knew from what I had told her that Ella and her husband's aim was to take over the house. Knowing now that their constant presence in the house when I lived there was all with that goal in mind, she felt no need for mercy. There could have been leniency if it was just about Ella relying on her stepmother, but not when it was about chasing after an inheritance. So, we asked our parents to transfer the house's title to Maya.
What? Why won't they give it to me? That's awful!
Ella screamed, her hair flying wildly. I couldn't understand why she wanted this old house so badly. Maya sighed, baffled by Ella's way of thinking.
Why did you even think you'd get it? You knew it belonged to our parents. It's up to them to decide who they give it to, but certainly not you. If you're talking about grandkids, they have 4 other grandchildren who are blood-related.
Ella grunted and fell silent. While it's curious that Amelia's name hasn't come up at all since we started talking, let's continue for now. Maya piled on further.
Plus, even if it was Layla's property, she has a son, you know. Forgot about your stepbrother? There's no way it could ever be solely yours. And seriously, why do you want this old house so much?
Then, Jackson started mumbling something incredibly significant. It was something that shouldn't have slipped in front of us, beneficial for us, but not for Ella and him. It went like this.
Because I heard they're planning to widen the road here, thought it might bring in some cash.
Hey! Ella interrupted him, but it was too late. Maya nodded deeply, showing she understood. So, Ella and Jackson were after the house for the compensation money from the road expansion. We were unaware of this, but Jackson, being in the construction industry, might have heard some rumors at work. The road in front of the house lacks a sidewalk, yet it's used by students from a nearby elementary school as a path to school. And surprisingly, a lot of cars pass by due to a nearby supermarket. Maybe they're planning to add a sidewalk. If so, even a meter-wide expansion would likely prompt some compensation from the authorities.
Well, come on in for now. You want to see Amelia, don't you? If you like, you can even stay over.
Maya said with an overtly bright smile. Despite knowing their true intentions, she activated the third part of our plan. Our last scheme was to have Maya and her husband discipline Ella and Jackson. Especially concerning Jackson, his behavior was unacceptable for someone visiting his in-laws' house. Maya, being less lenient than me, was supposed to scold them properly and teach them manners. Unaware of our plans, Ella and Jackson grinned at each other and casually entered the house. Perhaps still holding on to their bizarre live-in and own theory, they started making themselves comfortable as if it was their home. But Maya wasn't going to let that slide. For instance, when Jackson walked around wet and carelessly after a bath, what kind of appearance is that, eh? Don't you have any shame? How old do you think you are? Don't walk around wet. You're wetting the floor of someone else's house. Get changed and clean up after yourself. Her voice resonated through the house. Maya, a mother of 3 and a PE teacher, had a way of scolding that was forceful. Suddenly being reprimanded by a woman who looked so much like the indulgent mother-in-law he knew, Jackson was dumbfounded. Ella was the same, lounging in the living room only to have Maya come over and clap her hands loudly.
What are you sitting around for? In this house, those who don't work don't eat. Get to helping.
Ever so stern, Maya put Ella to work teaching her how to do laundry and clean properly. Ella seemed reluctant to the point of tears, but it was unexpectedly beneficial, and I couldn't help but feel a bit envious. Maya is capable in every aspect, surely excellent in household chores as well. I'd like to learn from her too. What dealt the most significant blow to Ella and Jackson, surprisingly, was Amelia herself. There's a reason why Amelia hasn't been mentioned up until now. She was wary of Ella and Jackson, clinging to her beloved grandpa, Maya's husband, and refused to leave the room.
Amelia, it's Mommy, I'm back.
As Ella approached with open arms, Amelia cried as if scared, bursting into tears. No wonder. At 0 years old, left behind, and now at 1, Ella was virtually a stranger to her. Just the sight of Jackson made her cry, genuinely hurting him. He had imagined a joyful reunion with his daughter, but Amelia, not warming up to him even a bit, left him in despair. Eventually, with a scornful look at Amelia, he blurted out, "This kid, she's not Amelia, is she?" which only infuriated Maya further. Ella and Jackson obviously assumed Amelia would still love and yearn for them after such a long absence. To think so after all this time is beyond naive. It's downright terrifying. To see what goes on in their minds would be quite the study. After Amelia, exhausted from crying, went to sleep with Maya's husband, Maya showed Ella and Jackson pictures of Amelia growing up. The genuinely adorable Amelia was smiling in every photo. From a floppy baby to her current bright-eyed self, all documented in an album.
For a child just over a year old, a year is almost a lifetime. Even if you're her parents, there's no way she'd remember you.
In front of a disbelieving Maya, Ella and Jackson were silently crying after seeing all the photos. It seems they've finally realized that what they abandoned for entertainment and money was irreplaceable time with their own child. If the two had a change of heart here and turned things around, it would make for a neat story. But it doesn't work that way. They still have my punishment to face. Maya didn't forgive their lack of manners. I think Amelia hasn't forgiven the lack of affection. And as a parent, I simply cannot forgive them for exposing baby Amelia to danger. The next morning, I visited Maya's house with several sturdy men. Of course, Maya was already aware.
It was mid-October. Leaving her at the front door is unthinkable. As the doctor said, it wouldn't have been surprising if something had happened due to such a risky act.
I explained while pressing the doorbell. Maya opened the door for us, and the men showed their police badges. The men I brought were police officers. Maya and I had consulted the police at the time Amelia was taken into protection. Having been advised it was a prosecutable offense, we contacted them again once the two returned to the country. We stormed into the breakfast Ella and Jackson were having leisurely.
What have you been doing all this time? How could you think to make her suffer in the cold just to leave her behind securely? The doctor said it would have been dangerous if her body temperature had dropped any further. I don't think you two deserve to be parents.
My voice trembled with anger. They had gone to Hawaii and spent a year playing around, as Maya had informed me. Moreover, Ella was pregnant again, 4 months along. It's unbelievable. Jackson was shocked to learn Amelia was in more danger than he thought, but Ella regained her haughty attitude as soon as she saw my face. Unaware that the police officers were behind her, she snorted in her usual manner.
Annoying. We wanted to have fun too. If you hadn't said you couldn't take her, it would have been better. It's your fault if Amelia froze.
As she said this dismissively, Ella tried to grab the scared Amelia. The police stopped her hand. The officers introduced themselves and calmly explained why they were there. Ella realized she might be arrested and started wailing and thrashing. Restrained by both a female and a male officer, desperately begging me for help. I just bit my lip and looked down. Though they were part of my extended family, I couldn't forgive what they did to Amelia. Jackson attempted to flee but was quickly caught and pinned to the ground. Both were then put into a police car and taken away. 2 months later, the verdict for Ella and Jackson was decided. Due to the egregious nature of their actions and lack of remorse, Ella was sentenced to years of service. Despite having reflected greatly thanks to Amelia and Maya, their sullen attitudes in court worsened the judge's impression. They blamed each other for starting the trouble, leading to mutual resentment, and ultimately, a divorce was decided. Pregnant Ella gave birth in prison. The child was initially placed in a childcare facility before I took custody. Ella cries daily, regretting her actions, but it's her own doing. Jackson, similarly, expresses regret. Jackson's parents apologized to me but decided to disown their son. After his release, he'll have nowhere to go, a pitiable situation. A year later, I've taken in both children Ella bore. Along with my returning son and my parents, we've chosen to live together in a large house, sharing our lives. We all decided to reside in a spacious house and live our lives together. With help from Maya and her husband, as well as Jackson's parents, I think the return to parenting is going smoothly. I've become particularly good friends with Jackson's mother, as we're close in age. Sometimes, when I send photos of the grandchildren, she responds with pictures of her cats. I'm constantly coming up with ways to create a nurturing environment where the grandchildren can thrive. Lately, I started growing flowers, hoping to teach them compassion. I dream of one day tending to them together with my grown grandchildren. Ella and Jackson are still behind bars. Amelia calls my son Daddy and me Grandma. While I believe it's important to eventually tell them about their biological parents, for now, I just want them to grow up feeling loved by everyone. The second child is a boy. Even at her young age, Amelia behaves protectively like a big sister. She'll approach and gently pat her brother when he cries, looking at him with concern. I find this affection between them utterly endearing. A daily reminder of the happiness that comes with being adored by such sweet grandchildren.